At Christmas, my niece turned to my son and said, "Grandma told me you and your mom were just a phase in this family." My sister laughed. I said nothing. Just gathered our things and left. That night, my mom asked about the Christmas bonus I usually send. I replied, "Mary cut off." The next day the calls started. There's a special kind of silence that settles right before a family implodes. The kind that doesn't come from peace, but from something rotting quietly underneath. That was this past Christmas for me. We walked into my mom's house carrying the usual offerings, gifts I spent too much time wrapping, a tray of roasted carrots with maple glaze that no one would eat, and my son Evan, 13, sharp-eyed and too grown for his age. He's been watching things I tried to shield him from for years. The house looked like a Pinterest board if it had been curated by Lindsay, my younger sister and my mother's forever favorite. Her voice was echoing from the kitchen, directing where the wine should go, telling our mom which plates to use. Haley, her daughter, had practically colonized the living room. Glitter, ribbons, ballet shoes, scattered like trophies of her golden child status. Every decoration had her touch. Every ornament was something she'd made. And the photos on the walls? Not a single one of Evan or me. Just Lindsay, Haley, and my mom. Like we'd already been erased. Evan and I didn't belong there. And he felt it. He sat close to me on the couch, holding the little box he'd wrapped himself for Haley. She opened it without saying thank you. Then she turned to Evan, dead serious, and said the words that cracked it all open. "Grandma told me you and your mom were just a phase in this family." Lindsay laughed. Loud, sharp, like it was some inside joke. My mother didn't react. She didn't even look up. I didn't ask questions. I didn't try to make anyone feel bad. I just stood up, told Evan to get his coat, and we left. The gift lay on the floor where Haley had dropped it. We didn't speak on the drive home. Not until we got into the apartment and I saw Evan sitting on his bed, still holding the wrapping paper he'd picked out for her gift. That's when it hit me how deep it had gone. Not just years of favoritism. Not just microcuts. This was systemic. Deliberate. And I had let it continue for too long because I didn't want to be the one who wrecked Christmas. That night, while I was washing dishes in silence, my phone buzzed. A text from my mom. "Don't forget the Christmas bonus. Hope work's been good this year." That was it. No mention of what happened. No apology. Just her usual yearly reminder that I fund half her expenses and cover Haley's ballet conservatory fees. That's what I was to her. A line in her spreadsheet. A dependable source. I stared at the message. Then I wrote back, "Mary cut off." I didn't explain. I didn't follow up. I turned my phone on Do Not Disturb and went to bed with the strangest sense of calm I'd felt in years. By morning, the silence was over. Call after call. First my mom, then Lindsay. A couple aunts. Some were trying to be diplomatic. Others were outright guilting me. Haley didn't mean it. Lindsay was just tired. My mom didn't hear it. I was blowing things out of proportion. But no one, not a single one, asked how Evan felt. Or how I felt. They wanted the money. They wanted the version of me who smiled through all of it and made sure their holidays sparkled. That version of me was gone. I wasn't just cutting them off financially. I was cutting them out. One by one. And the next step would hit even harder. Because if my mom thought she was the only one losing something, she was in for a brutal surprise. By the third day, the voicemails had lost their fake warmth. My mom's tone was sliding from sugary concern to thinly veiled panic. She tried the usual lines. "Family's all we've got. Life's too short. Haley's just a kid." Then she slipped in the real reason for the call, buried at the end like an afterthought. "Was there some issue with the Christmas bonus this year? Just wondering since I haven't seen it come through yet." That's when I knew she hadn't taken my text seriously. Mary cut off hadn't registered. Or maybe she thought I'd cave by now like I always did. The old Scarlet would've. Instead, I poured myself a coffee and pulled up the bank account I'd been quietly feeding every month for nearly a decade. It was listed under her name but linked to mine. I set it up the year my dad died when she said she was drowning in bills. The idea was to get her back on her feet. But somehow she never quite got there. The balance was small now. I transferred it into my personal account and initiated the closure. The bank asked if I was sure. I clicked yes and didn't look back. Next stop. Haley's ballet tuition. $400 a month like clockwork. I had set it up as a favor when Lindsay hit a rough patch 4 years ago. It was supposed to be temporary, but she never brought it up again. Just let it ride. Evan had danced there once too before the director started making it obvious who the real star was. After he quit, I kept paying for Haley out of guilt, out of habit, out of some warped idea that I was keeping peace in a war I never started. But this wasn't peace. This was surrender. I emailed the studio and revoked my card. No explanation. Just clean lines. Within hours, I got a text from Lindsay that didn't even bother with a greeting. "Did you cancel Haley's tuition? Seriously? What is wrong with you?" I ignored it. The next message came with a screenshot of the declined payment and a string of accusations. I was punishing a child. I was being dramatic. I was going to regret acting like a jealous teenager. That one made me laugh. Jealous? Of what, exactly? I didn't respond. I just made another call, this time to the dancewear store where I kept a credit line for Haley's costumes. Another forgotten favor that turned permanent. I closed it. That's when Lindsay started calling from a different number. I picked up. Not out of curiosity but because I wanted her to hear how calm I was. She didn't disappoint. She jumped straight in, yelling about Haley being devastated, about how they didn't have the money to cover her winter showcase, about how Mom has been crying for days. I said nothing. Let her fill the silence. Then she hit me with, "You're doing this because you're bitter. Because you've always been second. You're mad that Mom and I are close and you're just there." That part landed. Not because it was true, but because she said it so casually. Like that's just how things were and always would be. She hung up when I didn't take the bait. Later that night I got another message from my mom. This time it was just 2 words, "We need to talk." I didn't respond. I was already thinking ahead. For years I've been the quiet one. The helper. The one who filled the financial gaps and kept her mouth shut. But now that the money was gone, now that the strings were cut, they were scrambling. And the more they scrambled, the more the cracks showed. What they didn't know yet was that the silence wasn't the end. It was the warning. Because if they thought losing my money hurt, wait until they lost my silence too. I wasn't planning to tell anyone. That wasn't the point. I didn't cut them off to start drama. I did it to stop bleeding. But then my cousin Jamie texted me. "Hey, random question. Did something weird happen at Grandma's on Christmas?" I ignored it at first. Figured Lindsay was already running her mouth. But Jamie followed up right away. "Lindsay's been telling people you lost it. That you stormed out over a joke Haley made. That Evan's been having issues and maybe you're just overwhelmed." Overwhelmed. That was the word they'd picked. I don't know what felt worse, being dismissed or being predictable. Like they already had a little script ready in case I ever stopped playing my role. I called Jamie. I don't usually call anyone. But this was different. She picked up sounding surprised and said, "Are you okay?" So I told her. Everything. I didn't hold back. Not this time. How Haley called us a phase. How Lindsay laughed. How my mother stayed silent like we weren't even there. How Evan didn't say a word the whole way home. How I'd paid for nearly everything in that house at one point or another. How they treated me like a visitor, like a backup plan, like the family dog who brings in money but doesn't sit on the couch. Jamie went quiet. Then she said, "No one knows any of this. You should tell the others." I didn't want to. I'm not the tell everyone type. I don't post cryptic messages. I don't air things out on Facebook. I just leave. Quietly. That's always been my way. But then I remembered what Lindsay said on the phone. "You're just there." That's how they talked about me when I wasn't around. Just there. So I sat down and wrote an email. I didn't embellish. I didn't try to make it emotional. I made it detailed. Dates, payments, favors, forgotten birthdays, backhanded comments, and the exact words Haley said at Christmas. I even attached a photo of Evan holding the present he brought, still unopened when we left. I hit send. CC'd every single relative whose name I could find. Aunts, uncles, cousins, people who always asked why I didn't come to the beach trip or why Evan never came to Thanksgiving. The replies came in slow at first. Then fast. Some were shocked. Some apologetic. A few were angry but not at me. That's when the real surprise happened. Aunt Denise forwarded me a screenshot of a message she got from my mom back in September. I stared at it for a long time. It said, "Scarlett's always difficult. If we include her, it becomes about her. It's easier if she just doesn't come. Plus, Haley gets uncomfortable around Evan." Uncomfortable. The kid who sat quietly every year, who never complained, who tried so hard to fit in. My mother was making him the problem. Then Uncle Mark forwarded a message Lindsay had sent to another cousin last summer, about a family barbecue I never even knew happened. "Don't invite Scarlett. She always brings a weird energy. She thinks we owe her because she helps out with ballet stuff." That was the moment I realized I hadn't just been excluded. I'd been managed. Lindsay and my mom had built this narrative over years, slowly and carefully. I wasn't distant, they had made me look distant. I wasn't unavailable, they just never told me anything. But every time I didn't show up, they told the others it was because I was moody, or too sensitive, or always working. And for years I believed maybe that was partly true. Till now. I got a call from Aunt Janine the next night. She didn't even say hello. Just said, "I didn't know. I'm sorry. I believed everything they said about you." She wasn't the only one. Lindsay must have figured out what I'd done because 2 days later she did something unbelievably stupid. She tried to post a long sobbing message on Facebook. The kind of thing where someone writes, "I won't go into details, but some people think money replaces love, and ends with "Please keep Haley in your prayers." But she left the privacy settings wide open. Within an hour, 4 of our cousins were in the comments asking, "Is this about Scarlett? Because if so, maybe tell the full story." She deleted it. But not fast enough. And here's the part that even I didn't expect. 2 of the families in our circle, the ones who always hosted big family events, uninvited Lindsay and my mom from New Year's brunch. Quietly. No big announcement. Just "This year is going to be smaller. Hope you understand." I wasn't invited either. But for once, it wasn't because they forgot me. It was because they were afraid to show up without making it right. They weren't used to me having a voice. But the truth is, I'd always had one. They just never heard it over the sound of what they wanted me to be. And I wasn't done yet. Because there was still one place Haley's name sat. On a list for a scholarship funded by a donor she didn't even know. That donor was me. It slipped my mind at first, the scholarship. Back when Haley got into that prestigious ballet conservatory, Lindsay had called me in one of her usual dramatics, sobbing over tuition costs, saying they'd have to pull Haley out unless something came through. At the time it felt like life or death. Everything with Lindsay always does. She said Haley had real talent, that the teachers believed in her, that this was her shot. I didn't just offer to help. I created an entire fund. The school didn't need a real name, just a consistent bank account and a signature. So I made one up, SD Harper Fund, a fake donor name using my initials and an old family surname. I told the school I wanted to anonymously support promising dancers who couldn't afford tuition. But really, I only ever meant one dancer. Haley. For 3 years I paid without fail. No one knew. Not even Evan. I just did it like everything else. Quietly. The final payment was due in early January. I still had time. So I logged into the old donor portal and ended it. No fanfare. No explanation. Just one checkbox marked "Terminate future funding." I thought I'd feel something. Anger, satisfaction, even guilt. But I didn't. Just this strange kind of stillness. Like the last light in a room finally going dark. 2 days later Lindsay called. I didn't pick up. She left a voicemail, nearly screaming. "You cut the scholarship. What the hell is wrong with you?" She's been preparing for that performance all year. Then the text started. "You're actually punishing a child. Over what? Sentence? A misunderstanding? Are you really this unstable?" I didn't reply. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because finally I didn't need to explain myself. Lindsay was unraveling. My mother wasn't much better. According to Jamie, she'd started calling around trying to set the record straight with relatives. She was telling people I'd always had a problem with Lindsay's success. That I'd isolated Evan and refused to be part of the family long before Christmas. She even said in one call to Aunt Gina that I'd likely been drinking again. I haven't had a drink in 7 years. That line hit harder than I expected. Not because I was shocked she said it, but because it was her fallback. When all else failed, my mother always knew how to break people down in ways they couldn't prove wrong. But this time it didn't work. Aunt Gina texted me after and said she sounded like she was spiraling. I think she knows she went too far. The fallout started to spread in quiet little waves. One cousin backed out of helping with my mom's mortgage. Another told me they'd always wondered why Evan never showed up in holiday photos. People were seeing things they hadn't wanted to see before. And for once they weren't blaming me for the cracks. They were realizing they'd just been painted over. Then late one night I got a message from an unknown number. No name. No emojis. Just, "Why did you stop helping me?" It was from Haley. She was 12. Old enough to have her own phone. Old enough to type that out. And maybe old enough to know what she'd said at Christmas was cruel. But not old enough to understand what it cost. I stared at it for a while. I didn't answer. Not because I didn't care. But because what I wanted to say wasn't meant for her. It was meant for the 2 women who stood behind her every time she opened her mouth. And they weren't listening. Evan saw the message over my shoulder. He didn't say anything at first. Then he asked if we could skip the usual spring break this year. No relatives. Just us. Maybe a cabin or the beach. Somewhere quiet. I told him we could go anywhere. Because this was it. The door wasn't just closed, it was locked. And I wasn't leaving a spare key under the mat this time. But my mother wasn't done. She was about to make one last attempt to save face. And in doing it she sealed everything. I should have expected it. Silence for my mother isn't surrender. It's setup. When she goes quiet, it's only ever the eye of the storm. I found out from Jamie again. She sent me a picture of a printed flyer from her church bulletin. My mom was being honored at a charity luncheon. Women of strength. Honoring mothers who inspire generations. And right there, beneath the scripted praises, was my mother's full name. She was listed as a pillar of her family, someone who had selflessly guided her daughters through hardship and joy, and now helps raise her granddaughter with grace and strength. Read like fiction. No, not fiction, fan fiction. Written by someone who'd only ever seen her in church clothes, smiling politely, handing out cookies. I laughed when I saw it. Not because it was funny, but because I could already picture the whole thing. The quiet music, the polite claps, my mother standing at a podium, accepting praise for a reality she spent years crafting in front of everyone but me. I told Jamie to leave it alone. Let them have their little show. People believe what they want to believe, especially when the lie is prettier than the truth. But my mom wasn't content with just a round of applause. She needed witnesses, a wider audience. So she sent a mass email to the entire family. The subject line, "Family isn't always easy, but it's everything." I opened it even though I knew I shouldn't. It was long. Carefully written, like she drafted it 5 times and passed it through her filters. She talked about raising 2 daughters alone. About how she always put us first. How she opened her home and heart. How she was watching history repeat itself, with Lindsay and Haley, another generation of love, patience and strength. Then came the part about me. She didn't use my name at first. Just called me, a person who has chosen distance. Then she said, "Some people carry old wounds and turn them into walls. I've tried, I really have. But when someone chooses to remove themselves, you can only hold the door open for so long before it becomes a burden." A burden. That's what I was now. And for a moment it worked. That word hit me harder than I expected. Not because it was true, but because it was exactly the kind of language she used when she wanted to twist the knife and still sound like the victim. I didn't respond. But I didn't have to. Uncle Mark replied first. Just one line. Or maybe she didn't remove herself. Maybe she was erased. Then Aunt Denise. I don't remember Scarlett being invited to anything the past 2 years. Maybe the door wasn't open like you think it was. Then my cousin Ben chimed in. We all saw the email about Scarlett bringing weird energy last summer. Did you forget you sent that to half the family by mistake? That one was the turning point. Suddenly the thread wasn't about me at all. It was about my mother. Her selective memory. Her stories. Her careful shaping of everyone's role. And one by one people started peeling off. Not dramatically. Just unsubscribing. Muting the chain. Asking to be left out of the drama. It wasn't loyalty. It was quiet disbelief. The kind that makes people wonder how long they've been fooled. Jamie called me that night and told me something that stuck. She said, "It's not just about what you said. It's about how they never saw it until you did. You breaking the pattern made it impossible to keep pretending." I thought that would be the end. But it wasn't. Because 3 days later, Evan got a birthday card in the mail. No return address. Inside it said, "You're still welcome here if you change your mind." No cash. No gift card. Just a sentence. It was in my mother's handwriting. And it told me everything I needed to know. She didn't get it. So, he thought maybe, just maybe, Evan would break. That he'd come back alone. That he'd pick them over me. That she still had time to rewrite him the way she tried to rewrite me. But she didn't understand that Evan had already made his choice. Long before I ever did. That was the last time I heard from her. Or Lindsay. But someone else had been watching everything. Quiet. On the sidelines. And they were about to step into the mess with a voice that would flip the entire family over. I thought cutting the money was the end. Then I thought the silence was the end. But the real ending didn't come from anything I did. It came from everyone else waking up at the same time. It started slow. A few texts. A couple of late-night calls. An old cousin from Arizona who I hadn't heard from in years reached out on Facebook. Said he didn't want to take sides, but after reading everything he didn't feel right pretending he hadn't. Then came the rest. Turns out the email I sent didn't just land in inboxes. It landed hard. Screenshots were shared. Private conversations got exposed. People started comparing notes. Old favors. Missed invitations. Backhanded comments. It wasn't just me. It had never been just me. I was just the first to stop clapping. Uncle Mark called me and said, "You just said what most of us have been thinking for years." He had the nerve. The rest of us were just tired. By mid-January, family group chats were dead. Events were being cancelled. New Year's brunch was called off, due to scheduling, but Jamie told me the real reason. Half the family pulled out after seeing how my mom tried to spin everything. Some of them had kids now too, and they said they couldn't stomach the thought of raising them around that kind of quiet cruelty. My mother tried to fix it. He called the ones still willing to pick up. Told them I was exaggerating. That I'd always been sensitive. That I had a tendency to distort things. But people didn't buy it this time. The cracks were too wide. Too many details matched. Too many things suddenly made sense. Then came the worst one. The one I didn't expect. Jamie told me she overheard Lindsay complaining at the studio. Apparently, she tried to re-enroll Haley under a payment plan, and when it didn't work, she started blaming me. Loudly. Said I was punishing a child, ruining her future, acting out of deep jealousy. One of the moms, who'd also been on the recipient list of my email, I didn't even know she was a cousin by marriage, interrupted and said, "You should be ashamed. I used to look up to you as a mother." Not anymore. Lindsay left early that day. Haley didn't perform in the winter showcase. The program director quietly removed her from the scholarship waiting list. I didn't ask for that. But I didn't stop it either. And then came the final card. Another envelope for Evan. No name. Same handwriting. Same sentence. "You're still welcome here if you change your mind." I didn't toss this one into the fire right away. I showed it to Evan. Asked him what he wanted to do with it. He looked at it for a long moment, then said, "They never made me feel welcome when I actually was there. Why would it be different now?" So we burned it together. That weekend we drove upstate and found a small, quiet town with a good school and a library that looked like something out of a storybook. Evan said he could see himself living there. So could I. We've been looking at houses. The last thing I'll say is this: cutting someone off doesn't feel like freedom at first. It feels like guilt. Like doubt. Like grief. But freedom doesn't always feel good right away. Sometimes it feels like emptiness. And then one morning you wake up and you realize you've slept through the night without bracing for a text that twists your stomach. That's when you know it worked. That's when you know you're free. Let them tell whatever story they want now. Let them build a new version of events. Let my mother cry about her lost daughter at her charity lunches and Lindsay sigh about people who make everything about themselves. I won't be there to hear it. The story is mine now. And it ends here. Sometimes I think about what might happen years from now. If Evan ever asks for the full story, if Haley ever reaches out again, if my mother sends another card. I don't rehearse those moments. I won't prepare a speech. Because I'm not living in defense anymore. I'm not angry. I'm not bitter. I'm just done. And in the quiet of this new town, with snow falling outside and Evan reading by the window, I finally understand something I wish I'd learned earlier. You don't owe anyone your peace. You build it. You protect it. And when they try to walk back in with muddy feet, you leave the door locked.